Before I get into the financial statements themselves, I did want to thank Helena, Shannon, and staff for all their hard work. It takes a lot of work on our side, but also their side to get to this point to, get to the financial statements. So really appreciate everything that they did. Also want to thank council for the opportunity to perform the audit again this year. And again, just, being the timing of when we issue the financial statements. So, relatively early compared to peers, this, always like to present this at this time frame. So as I mentioned, the financial statements, one thing I like to remind the council is that these financial statements are your financial statements. However, there are some reports that we included here as auditors. The first report being your audit report in the front of your financial statements. This is where we express our opinion, so really the reliability of the numbers in your financial statements. We do have what's called an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion. It's really the best opinion we can provide over a set of financial statements. The second report is the report on internal control and compliance. We are required to review your internal controls with respects to financial reporting and financial statements. And if we identified any issues in those internal controls, we would communicate it in this report. And as you can see, there are no findings in that report either. And then the federal and state single audit report, since the city did have grant expenditures over $750,000 for both state and federal grants, we're required to do some additional testing over those grants. And again, you can see there are no comments related to that testing either. The management letter to the Auditor General, some more required communication, another letter we're required to include in the financial statements. Again, there's an opportunity if we had any additional comments or recommendation that maybe aren't necessarily specifically related to internal controls, but improvements in financial reporting or things of that nature, we would include it in there as well. But as you can see, there are no comments. And then the investment examination report just indicating that the city's in compliance with specific state statutes. We also issue a separate audit report for your CRA as required by the state. And again, you can see here there are no additional comments in that report either. So now kind of focusing more on the numbers, the city does have a fund balance policy in place. It's your note 17. Again, indicating here, and we'll look at some numbers here in a couple of slides, just basically saying that you are in compliance with your fund balance policy. And there is an assessment we're required to do for all municipalities in the state of Florida regarding called the financial condition assessment, where we take basically 20 to 30 different metrics and compare it to similar type entities as well as kind of historically the last 5 years. And there's 3 ratings you can essentially get from that. It's unfavorable, favorable, or inconclusive. Inconclusive is more like average. Unfavorable is really where we would be of concern, and you can see here we don't have that rating. So your general fund, this slide is just showing your fund balance. So again, your general fund is your main operating fund for the city, just kind of showing year to year any significant changes based on kind of the different spending categories. And as you can see, pretty consistent from last year. Slight increase there related to some investment earnings that you all received in 2024 as compared to 2023. I mentioned the fund balance policy. So we do look at the unassigned general fund balance as a percentage of expenditures. You can see that percent this year was, or for FY 2024 was 39%. Again, I mentioned that fund balance policy you all have. So you were above the minimum fund balance policy, but we also look at the GFOA, or Government Finance Officers Association, recommends at minimum 2 months or 60 days, which is approximately 16.7%. Think of that as a floor. You don't want to get close to that floor. You want to be above that. Again, we are in Florida. We do have instances of hurricanes and other emergencies. So again, making sure that there's a unassigned fund balance for those types of emergencies. Other governmental funds, so really these are the kind of funds excluding the general fund. Again, just looking at the different spending categories there as well. Biggest change here is the restricted fund balance there related to some of the impact fees you all collect. Your business type funds, so again, this is specifically looking at your unrestricted net position for your proprietary funds. You can see here that you've got the utility, solid waste, stormwater. I know there's a bunch of conversation today about that. But one thing we always like to say with, when we're looking at the numbers, this is half the picture. The other half's beneath the ground, so that infrastructure providing the services to citizens. again, as we look at this, we want to make sure we're continuing to invest in that. So part of that is looking, hey, what were capital asset additions for FY 2024? Again, looking at the year in audit, there was approximately $58 million in investment in those capital assets. Some other highlights in review for the year: the Old Kings Road assessment, the special assessment fund, that's currently being paid back. That's at about $2.4 million deficit. SRF loans, so there was some additional drawdown there of about $12.5 million, and then there was a subsequent event note, so basically after year end, related to the new stormwater loan of about $18.3 million. And I mentioned the SRF loan, so long-term debt, again, SRF loan, there was the drawdown, but some payback on that, as well as overall long-term debt did decrease about $115,000. And then just highlighting the retirement plans you all have in your financials, note 11, related to your volunteer firefighters and FRS, as well as your defined contribution plan. With that, I will stop and answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the dais? I'm sorry, give us where we stand. We've had this discussion. What is the term again? Helena? What is the term of where we're at as far as financial?
The financial condition assessment, it's inconclusive.
And that means we're good. We're good.
Kind of middle of the pack average.
That's where you want to be.
Yes.
That's really where you want to be. Yes, I just wanted to clarify that, Helena. I couldn't remember the name of the term. Okay, from the dais, any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just a couple comments. Brendan, thanks for you and Webb for all the work you did. I appreciate the meeting that we had prior to this meeting to kind of go through, in deep detail on these matters. Helena, the bond rating for the city is what?
So we're currently AA stable is our current rating for the water, wastewater, utility revenue bonds.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And in our packet, we have the balance sheet for the city. So for my fellow council members, it's page 41. But overall, total assets for the city is $974,877,559, almost $1 billion in assets. And our net position is $112,783. So overall, that balance sheet looks pretty good. Mr. Mayor and fellow council members, there's been a lot of questions about, forensic audit versus this audit and things of that nature. And so in our meeting, I asked a couple questions. So the audit that we currently, that was currently executed, Brendan, it's based on statistical sampling, correct? And looking at our policies and procedures.
Correct. Yeah, there was a slide regarding the report we issue with regards to internal controls. So as part of that process, we're required to not only understand it, but walk through and perform a sample of basically whatever that activity is, so utility billing, and test that through the transaction cycle. So yes, there is a statistical sampling on the internal controls, but also substantively. So your balance sheet that you mentioned, we test that as well statistically.
Okay. And then for a forensic audit, what do you consider a forensic audit?
So with regards to the forensic audit, that would be looking at 100% of transactions.
100% of the transactions, okay. Is that pretty labor intensive, and is there a pretty significant cost associated with it?
Yes, generally the forensic audit is somewhat pointed as to an area, just because of the time involved with doing an audit of that magnitude. Again, you would have to scope and determine what that would look like, but if you were to pick, say, the utility fund, which I know you all are discussing, at least hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Okay, all right. And I know, Mr. Mayor, you've reached out to the JLAC, the Joint Legislative Committee Chair, or the auditor, and requesting that, and that would come in through the state auditor. And so these are, just wanted to explain that process.
If the state initiates it.
If the state initiates it, correct.
If we initiate it, we have to pay for it.
Yeah, but I think if they initiate it, if we ask and they initiate, we still have to pay for it, correct?
James,
The forensic audit.
a forensic audit?
Yeah.
So this,
would be called an operational audit.
Yeah, so the
Okay.
state, for the JLAC, what they would issue is called an operational audit, so that's a different type of audit. It's not a forensic audit. There are overlap in the sense that it would have a financial aspect to it, but it also looks at operations, policies, and procedures, may look at efficiencies as well. It's more broad. Forensic kind of goes more deep, from my understanding. Again, the operational audit is kind of more widespread with regards to the city. So a lot of, not just finance and accounting, but other departments would be included in that as well.
It's more like a risk assessment. When
Okay.
when I used to do risk assessments, that's basically what it is.
Okay,
It all depends on what the scope and who you have inspecting what areas.
okay. Brendan, during the course of your audit, did you find anything that gave you pause at all? Any malfeasance, anything that you thought to be, out of the norm in any of our funds?
No, and we are required, again, as part of our procedures, we're required to have professional skepticism, and if there are items or issues that come up, we're required to, ultimately, we report to you all. So
Right.
we're required to communicate any types of findings with regards to fraud, waste, or abuse. Again, we would be required to not only communicate it to you all, but also the state.
Okay, thank you. And Helena, thank you and your team for everything you do to help run this city. Mr. Mayor, that's all the questions and comments that I had.
Especially you, Shannon. Thank you so much. Councilman Miller, you got anything?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just kind of jumping onto we were talking about sampling and transactions and trying to understand what you guys looked at from a standpoint of the audit. My understanding is that because you're operating from a space of professional skepticism, that the data given to you was not necessarily given to you. You were given full read access to our financials, all the transactions, and then you could look wherever you wanted to based on that sampling, right?
Correct. So that's not always the case for external audits. We don't always have read-only access. So I would say that's another layer of transparency that we receive. So we have direct access versus, potentially the risk of a report getting run and modified and provided to us.
Right, right. So you're not relying on data being given to you. You have access to it without restriction. The other thing, there's some sections in there that say no comments. I just wanted to kind of expand on that. So what does that mean when you have no comments? There's no findings of anything wrong. Is that what that means, or?
Yeah. So you all saw there's quite a bit of reports that we issue, and again, there's different areas that we can provide feedback, comments, internal control, what we call material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. So that there's different mechanisms to provide again, kind of that feedback. But again, ultimately, we're reporting to you all. So part of that, specifically the internal controls and compliance report, that's where we really want to be able to formally communicate, hey, these are the issues we've identified. And again, we take a risk-based approach, so as the mayor kind of mentioned. So we develop an audit plan, execute the audit. Again, there's statistical sampling involved, and we're trying to review, all the financial statements to provide, again, that feedback. So if there were issues that were to come up, we would definitely provide that to you all.
So essentially what no comments means is that you found nothing that we're doing improperly, that you have no suggestions for changing of procedures or policies to control those issues.
Correct.
Okay. I have a couple more. And we mentioned inconclusive and how that kind of feels bad on its face, but during our meeting, you kind of described it as that's not the case, that really inconclusive is what you see on a broad spectrum in terms of people that are running their finances good and well. And so I just wanted to make sure that was, in the public forum, that doesn't lead to people making assumptions about the findings of this audit.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, one of the reports, the management letter to the Auditor General, there's a specific section where we address that. So again, if it was unfavorable, we would be required to communicate that to you all. So again, not just to you, but also the state.
And then just to touch on, we were talking about the operating balance, and so the general recommendation is to stay above, or the requirement is to stay above a minimum of 16.67%.
2 months.
Yeah, so that constitutes about 2 months, and we're at 39%, so we're somewhere between 4 and 5 months of operating budget, right? So that appears to be in a good spot, that in case there was any emergency, we'd be able to handle that and weather that storm as we get through.
Yeah, and again, as I kind of mentioned, the 2 months is a floor. You don't want to be, we wouldn't recommend being at the 2-month threshold. Think of that as, hey, the Government Finance Officers Association is saying, hey, this is kind of the minimum
Bare
of what we would
minimum.
want you to
Okay.
see.
And then just as a comparison, you know, you don't have to name any cities' names or anything like that, but how do we stack up in comparison to other cities when you guys do these audits for other cities?
Yeah, so again, we do, you know, over 40 municipalities, 12 counties, a bunch of special districts. I would say generally we have at least 1 or 2 comments in the reports. And then the statutory requirement to issue financial statements is June 30th. You all are well earlier. You also do get a certificate from the GFOA. You know, again, kind of requiring the early issuance for that March 31st. And then there's other kind of items that you all are doing in addition to what you have to do. So you're kind of going above and beyond what's required by the state as far as issuing and, again, getting audited for that purpose.
And I guess my final question is, can you talk about oversight? So obviously, the audit is a form of oversight over our finances. Is there oversight over your performance of the audit as well?
Yeah, so, you know, internally we have review and oversight. So there's not only kind of the team doing the audit, but there's multiple levels of partner review as well as kind of an additional partner outside of the audit altogether. And then internally as a firm, we're required to go through different levels of review, including what's called a peer review that happens once every 3 years. So an outside firm comes in and basically audits us to make sure we're in compliance with standards. And then internally we do kind of on the off years internal inspections. So again, another set of eyes that's not involved in the audit to kind of make sure, again, we're meeting the standards and requirements that we need to be independent and performing an audit so you can rely on the numbers.
So essentially, we're double checking the people checking us, right? So.
Yeah, we've got a lot of checks.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So thank you, staff, and to the consultant. Again, you all do a great job every year, so appreciate your work. I had a couple questions on the fund balance. So if we go to page, well, it's 89 in the packet, but it says 43 of your slide, where it says general fund. Yeah, this one. So I just had a couple questions between this page and the next page, just so that we make sure we understand exactly what all of these figures mean. So for this, where it says general fund unassigned fund balance is $22,309,000. What, is that the total in our fund balance right now for general fund?
No, those are the unassigned dollars. So essentially,
Okay.
we've got kind of the different buckets of non-spendable, restricted, committed. Unassigned and assigned are basically, you know, they don't have strings tied to those. So they're not for specific use. So either external restrictions or internal ordinances or resolutions or things of that nature.
Okay, so the total fund balance right now is $29 million.
Correct. As of 9/30/2024.
Yes, as of that date.
Correct, yes. Okay. Now, if you could pop back to that other slide. So does that 29 million represent 39%?
No, so that percentage is specifically to the unassigned fund balance.
Okay, so that is only for the 22, the 39%.
Correct.
Got it, okay. What is 16%? What dollar figure is that? Do we know?
Who's the mathematician?
I'd have to run that number for you, but I will.
Okay, what I'm getting at is, you know, we have budget coming up, we have SAP coming up, so just keep it in the back of our heads. We don't want to be at 16.67%, we don't even want to be at 20%. But, you know, we want to try to keep property taxes low as we've been able to do the last several years. So, or last few years. So as we look at these numbers, just keep this in mind that we don't want to drop to the minimum, right? We want to be healthy and safe because we can incur natural disasters that even though we get FEMA money, we have to front a lot of that money and then unfortunately wait a long time to get it back. But let's just keep this in mind. What's that?
9.15 million.
Is 16.6?
About,
Okay.
yes.
Okay,
Rough
thank you.
math.
Awesome, thank you. So just keep that in mind as we go into budget, we go into SAP, you know, what this fund balance is, and, you know, if there are, we know we've got some pretty big expenses coming down the pipeline, asks from different departments. So let's just keep these in mind as we go down that process and look at keeping our property taxes low.
Thank you, ma'am. Nothing else from the dais? Can I get a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay.
We need public comment, sorry.
I know. No further comment from the dais. We'll open it. Yes.
If I could just be helpful, there's a QR code at the table where the media is sitting, and it has all of this information in the backup of the packet, including the annual comprehensive financial report. And also, we have a financial transparency dashboard on our website where this information will also be located. So, and we will update it once council adopts and approves the annual comprehensive financial report.
So there's roughly 200 pages of information there, so.
Yep. Thank you, City
Feel like
Manager.
diving through.
Someone remind me from now on to tell everybody they can scan that QR code when they come into the meeting. Nothing else from the dais. Open this up for public comment. Yes, ma'am.
My previous question was, how much does the city still own for anything that the city still has to pay back?
Thank you, ma'am. Wow, she disappeared on me. I looked down. I think our total debt we're carrying right now is like 155 million, right, City Manager?
Heard that number said before.
That's in your water and wastewater fund specifically.
Okay, that's our debt. Yes, ma'am, our biggest.
Marilyn Mack, 15 years in the F section. The thing I forgot to mention in the last thing, but it's pertinent to this. Where and who is pursuing the $120 million plus interest the developer owes us for the West End expansion where we paid for the infrastructure and he was supposed to pay for it and agreed to pay for it in 2010?
Thank you, Ms.
Blank faces.
Was that it, Ms. Mack? Was that it?
Yep, Mack, M-A-C-K.
No, I'm just asking if that was it. Were you done or you?
No, I have more.
Okay, we'll try to answer after you finish. If you
Then you guys also have about $6 million in reserves. If I'm remembering right, I think it's $6 million, but you have to leave 2 in. So there's $4 million, okay? And there's 120 plus interest, million. Remember, the developers are millionaires, not us. Okay, and then there was an article on Facebook. I don't remember who did it, but you guys talked about it. It was Mayor Mike and Teresa. $486 million worth of future revenue. There's your money. For the water issue, right there. But you all don't know about it. I think the water department and everything should be sold because obviously this city doesn't know how to manage it. And these audits where you guys hired the auditor, why don't we have an internal auditor? Why don't we have an internal city manager? Why don't we have an internal attorney? Do you all know that we have 3 to 4 separate hired by solicitation attorney firms that get paid $30,000 a month plus expenses? Why do we need that much legal representation? And why don't we have just one legal attorney on staff like a normal city would have? Oh, but you guys can't cut back anywhere. Wrong answer.
Thank you, Ms. Mack. Yes, ma'am.
Just a suggestion. How about if we take our water bill and make it a true water bill? Take off maybe leave the trash on because that can't be messed with. Swales, maintenance, all this other stuff, take away. This way, if I get like my water bill from another county is $60, and that's with trash. I know what I'm paying. Now, if my city over there said, well, you know, we got to raise the bill $10. Okay, $70 I'll be paying for my water bill. At least I know, you know, that when they get grants or funding for the water department, and there is no streets and sanitation or no swales that can dip into the money that is for the water. I think our problem is that we have the funds for our water department, but all these other swales and everything else gets to dip into our water department funds and use it for that because it's all kind of clumped into one. So we need a separate water bill, just to show us our water rates and our water bill. Take off everything else. Do it like it used to be back in the day. You know, bill it on the taxes, so all these people who have the empty lots and everything else, you know, from what I see on my property taxes, I'm getting billed, and then on my water bill, I'm getting billed for swale and different maintenances. Well, that's double dipping. Just put it all on the tax bill. People with empty lots are gonna have to pay what we're paying. The developers look at how much water these apartment buildings use. Okay, I called up one of the apartment buildings and they says, well, our basic water bill is like $40 a month. Well, and I talked to some residents, well, some of them have third-party meters inside these buildings, so they're making the extra money. Instead of these third parties, why isn't the city of Palm Coast putting meters in for each one of these apartments and make the money instead of the builder or the, what do you call it, the apartment building owner? You know, there's so many different ways we can get our water fixed. It's just that everybody don't want to step on nobody's toes. And everybody's afraid of hurting somebody's feelings. We have to do something, and I think the main thing is get us a true water bill. Take all the fluff out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Rose Chimisero, resident of Palm Coast. This gentleman who came up here, who did an audit and was paid to do this audit, why did he not find this money that I spoke about and I gave the wrong number, and then somebody came forward and talked about more money? I don't understand. If he did an audit, shouldn't this have been found and taken care of? I don't understand this. So you had a professional auditor come, but yet this money still is not accounted for. Isn't the auditor supposed to find that? That's my question to you guys. I mean, I don't get it. So he talked about a forensic audit. Yes, I understand that it's, I guess, state whatever, but something's got to give with the money. You guys are not transparent enough, and even the auditor's not transparent enough, and money's still missing. So my question is, where's the money?
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone? Yes, Ms. Perkins.
Are we allowed to ask the auditor a question?
Well, you can ask the question. He can
Oh,
answer.
okay,
He'll answer it
so-
after the comment.
I mean, it was really cute, some of the questions you guys were asking him about forensic audits and about this audit. Anybody who's been through an audit for a company knows that they take a sampling. That's what they're supposed to do. And it's statistical. They look at it and, you know, extrapolate and make sure everything's kosher, which I'm sure it is. And nobody's saying that somebody here is stealing money or spending money on something that shouldn't be spent on necessarily. We're talking about mismanagement. We are, you know, I ran a electrical company, power testing for a huge grid, but even for a house, something as simple as that, your main power, say it's a 200 amp breaker, when you wire stuff in, you don't go over 80% of that. If I call and have somebody add more outlets and everything, that electrician had better make sure we don't go over 80% on the load, or we're gonna have some problems. Does that audit show why we got to 100% on the water capacity? Why we got here? No, it's not gonna show that. They're only talking about accounting expenditures and income. and making sure that's done and done with the policies and compliance, people signed off, they had a bill for the receipt, all of those things. They're not looking at who approved to keep building, and that's the type of audit we want, okay? And I don't care if it's $100,000, I don't care if it's $500,000 for that audit. I want to know the answer. We all deserve to know the answer. I'm sorry, we don't have a brigadier general income here. We're all like warrant officers or below, perhaps, I don't know. But we deserve the answer to find out what happened. Where was this mismanagement? Okay, somebody kept approving. Somebody kept approving. Were they being strong-armed by somebody higher up? Being forced to do it? Is that what happened with Amanda Reese because she was speaking out? Oh, we got to get rid of her? What happened? That her letter was damning, and I can't believe nothing has been done yet. I cannot believe nothing has been done yet. Somebody was trying to strong-arm her into going with the flow, and she wasn't doing it. So we all do understand the difference between forensic audit, performance audit, regular audit. These gentlemen performed a regular audit. I would hope the city can at least pass that, and they did. So your cute little questions do not take it off of our minds not wanting an audit. We still want that audit. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else with a public comment? Seeing no one come forward, I'll bring it back to the dais. City Manager, do you know anything about the city fronting money for, I'm assuming she was talking about Matanzas Woods and stuff like that. Did that happen that you know of as far as the developers?
Well, the DRIs have not been activated, sir, so there's no requirement to initiate any type of infrastructure until a DRI has been activated.
Okay. All right, I just want to clear that up. Anyone else have any more questions, any follow-ups to what's been stated?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that we just had a conversation where multiple times we've been accused of losing or stealing money or misusing it, and then the goalpost shifts to, well, we're not asking for that type of audit. That's exactly what has been happening every week for months and probably years. So, it feels to me that we can present factual data about audits and it will never be accepted as truth. So if that's the case, then that's the case. So.
Thank you, sir. City Manager, there was also mentioned earlier to me outside about funds for like the North End, Belterre and all that stuff was tied to enterprise funds. Is there any bonds that are tied to that enterprise funds for expansion up north on Belterre?
Not that I'm aware of,
Okay.
Mayor. I would have to look into that. I'm not
Okay,
aware.
if you could, I would appreciate it. Anything else? You got anything, Vice Mayor?
Just really quickly, if there are certain line items in any of the budgets, the budget sheets, anything as far as, actual financial numbers for something that anybody has questions about, please email them to me because I've been in the financial sheets. We are doing the audit on efficiencies, operational efficiencies, but as far as actual monies are concerned that are allegedly missing, if we don't know specifics, then I can't look into it. So I'm happy to look into it. I'm happy to scratch surfaces and try to figure things out. But I got to know what to look for, or I guess look at. So happy for anybody to email that to me, and we can search diligently for you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Anything else from you, Councilman Gambaro?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Ms. Cook, could you read the ordinance and call the vote again, please?
Yes, it is Resolution 2025 accepting the annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2024.
Thank you, sir. Call the vote, Ms. Cook.
Vice Mayor Pontieri,
Yes.
Councilmember Gambaro,
Yes.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Mayor Norris.
Yes,
The
thank you,
motion
ma'am.
passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, item H, number 5, I'm sorry. City Attorney, please read it.
Resolution 2025 approving the cultural arts grants for the fiscal year 2024-2025.
Okay, City Manager, what was the guidance from the last meeting we had concerning this?
Thank you, Mayor. Per your direction, I met with Mr. Jay Shear and Miss Nancy Crouch, who is here in front of you today. We discussed the Cultural Art Grant Program. We also discussed adding an additional time period for additional grants to come forward. Those that may had not had the opportunity to apply would have another round, which is very similar to how the city has conducted this grant opportunity in the past. And we reviewed the grants that we're going to see here before you today, and many of them are previous grant awardees that the city has recognized year over year. And that was the discussion from that council meeting. And just to give you a little background of information on this particular grant program, the city established it back in, I believe, 2009. And then from 2009 until last year, it was either performed by the city's Leisure Services Advisory Committee, and then when that committee was sunsetted in 2019, it became staff's responsibility to organize the grant program and distribute the funds pending city council's approval. Really puts staff in a very tough predicament whenever we're looking at the various groups and allocating funding. So in speaking with Ms. Crouch and the mission of FC3, that aligned with your strategic action plan priority that was adopted. We worked together to create an agreement that was adopted by City Council for FC3 to manage the city's cultural art program, similar guidelines that had been established back in 2009. And then there was a larger pot of funding this year than had ever been before. So that's just a little bit of background on the program and your previous direction.
Okay, thank you. Before we get started, City Attorney, did you look into the contract and the bylaws of the FC3?
I did look at the bylaws. I do not have the contract in front of me, but it's a general contract of what Ms. Johnson said. That
Okay,
they do that agreement.
Well, Ms. Crouch, could you please tell us who the voting members on the board are?
Who the voting members, yes. Myself.
Okay, you got it on slide, good,
Yeah.
thank you.
Everyone up there on the board of directors.
Everyone on the board of directors
Yes.
is a voting
Is a
member.
voting member.
And their bylaws, as far as, did you look at that? As far as the one specific line about being members of political organizations? Was that, or was it in the contract?
I did not see it in the bylaws. I have them up so I can look at them while they get the presentation.
Okay.
Give them quick.
Did you have a chance to look at that too, Vice Mayor? Did you look at the contract and the bylaws for the FC3?
To see, specifically to see whether or not any member of the board of directors could also be a part of a political organization?
Yeah, well, I read it's either in the contract or in their bylaws that they can't be members of political organizations.
So the way I read that is that they can't be, and I could be wrong in my interpretation, but the way that I understood the requirement is that they cannot be, like, a voting member cannot be a member of city council, cannot be a member of board of county commissioners. When you say political organization, what do you mean?
That's correct.
I mean, like the
That is
Republican
correct.
Executive Committee or the
I see.
Democrat
Okay.
Republican Executive Committee?
Yeah, I don't know.
Tiger Bay Club?
I don't. I would, okay. So
Tiger-
then we're getting into whether or not that's considered a political
Well, it is considered a
organization.
political organization. That's why I'm asking.
Well, that's my question is, how do we define those things?
Oh.
So I don't know.
That's for the attorney to determine, but that's what I'm getting at, Ms. Crouch, is if the bylaws say that you can't be you can't be on the board and be a member of a political organization, that's what we have to go by.
These are representatives. They don't have voting privileges. The appointees.
No, I'm not talking about the electeds. I'm
Okay.
not talking about the electeds. I'm talking about the board of directors. If you could run that to ground,
Okay, there are none.
Mr. Duffy, I appreciate it. Yes, ma'am, go right ahead.
Okay. Thank you, City Manager, for providing that history. It saves me a few minutes. So I would like to, however, since many of you are new to the council before this agreement came about, talk a little bit about our organization, because you might not know who we are or what we're set out to do. The Flagler County Cultural Council accomplishments in the last couple of years. First of all, has been designated by the Board of County Commissioners as a local arts agency for Flagler County. That just means that we can draw more national grant funds to our community by being a local arts agency. We participated in the Americans for the Arts and Economic Prosperity Study. This is just Flagler County. This is a nationwide study. And this is the results of just Flagler County. I won't go through all this with you, but there is a portion of this that I think you should know. The worthiness of these organizations that put on programs and events for our community. Arts and Economic is an economic and social impact study of the nonprofit arts and culture industry. In Flagler County, the sector generated $4.7 million in economic activity during 2022. $2.8 million in spending by arts and culture organizations, and an additional $1.9 million in event-related expenditures by their audiences. That economic activity supported 90 jobs, provided $4.9 million in personal income to residents, and generated $1.7 million in tax revenue to local, state, and federal governments. So let's be reminded here that arts and culture drives commerce to local businesses. When people attend a cultural event, they often make an outing of it, dining at a restaurant, paying for parking or public transportation, enjoying dessert after the show, and returning home to pay for child or pet care. Overall, in Flagler County, attendees spend $38.29 per person per event beyond the cost of admission. These dollars represent vital income for local merchants and the value add, which few industries can compare. So that's just a couple little snippets out of this entire set of data, which I would love to share with you one-on-one if you would like. In addition to that, we secured $50,000 to Flagler County graduating high school seniors for scholarships. We gave five $5,000 scholarships away last year. We are going to do it again this year. We wanted our awards to be substantial. We are giving our awards to students pursuing a career in arts and culture, career industry-based professions. We have an application pending right now for the 2026 Local Arts Agency grant through the state of Florida. We created a strategic plan. Last year we spent a good amount. These are all volunteers, mind you, okay? We're all volunteers. A good deal of time creating a strategic plan, okay? That took up a big part of our year last year. And in so doing, discussions went underway to coordinate a mural project for Bunnell. Discussions are underway with Daytona State College on an oral history project. We hosted a high school photography contest at Creekside Festival for 2023 and 2024, and we'll likely do it again this year. Because of this grant, we invested our own funds into this online grant application platform called Submittable. $5,500 to invest in this fund for these grants and future grants. We want it to be a professional, streamlined way of people going online and applying for the grants. We manage the public art turtle trail. I'm sure you're all aware of that. And just as an FYI, in May, we're going to dedicate our next turtle, our Vermeer turtle, so keep a lookout for that. We partnered with the Flagler County Education Foundation on the Great Minds Summer Program at the Carver Center. That had to do with the turtle program. They took their summer program kids on school trips, and they would go out and look at the turtles out on the various public sites, have lunch, talk about the turtle, and then go back into school and do little programs and create projects as a result of those turtle visits. And as a result, we collaborated with Flagler County School District on adding the turtle trail to the academic curriculum. So now it's part of Old Kings Elementary School academic curriculum, as they are part of the marine sciences programs. In addition, We are publishing a book on the Turtle Trail, which should be coming out after this last hurdle is dedicated. So probably in early fall, we will have our first book of the Turtle Trail. And maybe an accompanying coloring book, an activity book that goes with the kids. That's also been discussed. And in addition to that, we host a spring and a fall arts festivals. Now, the next one's May 17th, and then the one after that is November 8th. So we're not really stagnant. We're really quite busy out there. And like I said, we're volunteers. But I would like to get back to the strategic plan. It took us months. Like I said, we've got lots of info here that's going to help guide our priorities for the coming years. The 3 pillars that we wanted to focus on is advocacy, collaboration, and support of all of our arts, history, and cultural organizations in the community. And our strategic priorities, maintain agreement with local and state officials, would be the trusted source for information, resources, promotion of the arts and humanities in Flagler County, establish a granting program, provide promotional and marketing support, and award scholarships and sponsorships for arts and humanities education. Those 3 are our major pillars, and everything that we do has to fall under one of those 3 pillars. So moving on to the grant. Last summer, the City Council workshop, Lauren just touched on this, met and discussed alternative funding for the arts, culture, history programs. I won't go into too much of this as she just did, but in December, FC3 purchased the subscription submittable, as I mentioned, and we designated one board member, acted as the coordinator for the program to review and confirm receipt of all submissions and offered technical support assistance to all applicants. She was the most experienced working and being a reviewer for state grants and having, along with me, submitted multiple grants in our life. All applicants attended a meeting March 7th and were provided the opportunity to answer questions from the reviewers about their application and provide feedback regarding the process. All scores were calculated and will be calculated and presented to the city today. Now, if you'd like to know what the scoring criteria was, I can go over that as well. I don't know how much in-depth you want me to get into this, but this was the scoring criteria and the points in which the grants, this was very rigorous. And I understand that there was a small time frame, well, not necessarily small, but an adequate time frame for grants to be applied for. We reached that milestone. We had 13 grant applications, which was, I think, more than the city had last year. It didn't, what the crunch was, the reviewers were the ones that were really under the crunch because they had a week in which to review all those applicants, 15 applications. So anyway, the project has high merit.
Can I stop you for a second? Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
When did the application process start? When did it open, I should say?
February 1st, I think.
Okay, can you go back to this slide that provided the timeline? So it says the final agreement for administration of cultural art grant program was fully executed on November 22nd, 2024, right?
That is correct.
Why did the application not open until February 1st?
Because we then had to create the guidelines. We weren't going to do any of that until we had a formal agreement with the city. We created the grant guidelines, pretty much similar to the cities, but and then we wanted to go back to our board and then get the submittable, so we did that in December.
Okay, so I would assume now that you
Then
have...
we spent the whole time organizing all the formatting, and getting it all submitted into the submittable program so we can get it logistically out there.
And then how long was the application process open? February 1st to what?
The 28th,
February 28th?
Yeah, end of February.
Yeah, so respectfully, I don't think that's a very long time, particularly for people who may not know about this grant. You know, you're in this world all the time, all day, every day. This is your thing.
Yeah, we reached out to all the organizations in the community and, pretty much knew what's going on.
Okay, well, here's my point. It's taxpayer dollars, and we're the one to issue those taxpayer dollars. So I would appreciate if now you all have the guidelines, you have the criteria, you have it all set, so
Yeah.
I would assume that this application process will be open sooner than February 1st.
Yes, it will. We lost a quarter. You're right. Right, absolutely. It'll be much sooner.
Okay, perfect.
Moving forward.
So this is a non-issue moving forward? Because I
Absolutely.
understand there was a lot of.
Non-issue moving forward.
Okay, there was a lot of, at the last meeting, there was some outcry on the short period of time, which I assume now will be a non-issue moving forward. My other question was with regards to the time period of April 1st to December 31st. Is there a reason that time period is
Well, we
fixed?
thought we lost a whole quarter. That's why.
Okay.
But most of the programs and events are being done well before that.
Gotcha. Okay, because I was thinking, usually we do have a lot of events in March, so it might allow for more applications if we do open it up for March 1st to December 31st, so we don't preclude a lot of people.
We'll
Okay,
definitely be able to
perfect.
do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. One of the issues was in most nonprofits, they have to go through the board of directors. They have to go through a process to say, okay, this is the event we're going to do. They have to get that approval, and that's a bit time consuming. So you need to add time for those people to be able to meet those thresholds to do what they're supposed to be doing legally under their
We will take that into, yes, of course, moving forward.
that was a short, like a month. That might not be enough time for most people, but and we know this is all.
We were really thrilled to see the number of applicants that we
Yeah,
had.
we know that this is just getting started
exactly.
and just start getting the contract, and the contract was signed when, city manager?
November.
So it was like, it's like we're on a time crunch, but
Right.
just so the nonprofits are aware of it moving forward. We don't want those complaints and
And
misunderstandings.
neither do we.
Mr. Mayor, can
Yes, sir.
I just, for clarity's sake, this month or this year is February, right? So what does that look like next year? Is it November to February? Is it like, what would be the proposed dates going forward in terms of application period so that, we have a good feeling?
I think we can open it up really early,
Yeah.
as early as possible.
Well, the sooner after we pass the budget and
budget, yeah.
allocate the
Right
funds,
after
the
this
better.
budget, right after the budget is passed, we
That's
can
right.
open it up.
That'd be the best
That's
way
what I'd like to do.
Yeah,
Best way
agreed.
to do it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, ma'am, you can continue on.
Do you want me to continue with the scoring?
Well, I would like to ask a
I mean, you have
question.
it.
There was some discussion about people receiving extra points for being members of the FC3.
No, that didn't happen.
That doesn't, okay, I just
No.
wanted to verify. Okay,
No.
thank you, ma'am.
It was discussed. I mean, a lot of things were discussed in prior meetings.
Well, if
And that was one
if
of the
you're-
things that was discussed.
Yeah, if you're just getting something going, I understand, you run into some hiccups and stuff, but as long as that's not the case, I'm happy with that.
Mm-hmm. No, it is not the case.
Mr. Mayor, so I do have an update for your question
Yes,
about
yes,
political
sir.
activities. So in their bylaws, under Article 4, prohibited activities, it says the corporation, so that's FC3 as a whole, shall not support partisan organizations, politicians, or candidates for political office. That's the corporation, not the individual person in their individual capacity.
Okay, thank you.
Can't dedicate funds to.
Yeah, well, you don't want there to be even an appearance of something wrong.
Oh, I know, I agree.
Yes, ma'am, go right ahead.
Okay, so now the good news.
There's good news in
There's
this
good
city hall.
news. I know.
Wow, okay.
These are the organizations, so worthy, and I'm so thrilled to get to know them even better during this whole process. These organizations are, and we kind of rank them from the top score, which is 105, down to the bottom. And when I read your names, our cultural leaders, would you please stand? Because I'm really proud that you're here, and I'm really proud that we're able to help fund you. The Flagler Auditorium Governing Board, the City Repertory Theater, Palm Coast Music Festival, African American Cultural Society, Hispanic American Cultural Society, Community Chorus of Palm Coast, City Lights, Flagler Education Foundation, Flagler Performing Arts Academy, Kids Rock the Nation, the Garden Club of Palm Coast. We had one grant that didn't really fit the criteria, the scope, of the grant process, and they didn't meet that minimum threshold of 80 points on the scoring, unfortunately. I do encourage them to come back next year with a better laid-out plan on how they can fit into the Arts and Culture Grant. And the Flagler County Historical Society withdrew their application like 2 days before the review process. So anyway, I'd like to thank all of you for your submissions. So we're recommending 11 for funding, 1 not recommended, as I mentioned, and 1 application withdrew. The total funding request is $89,094. And if you want, we can go through what the purpose of their grants are. And I would like to do that, actually, for the record.
Yes, ma'am, go right ahead.
The African American Cultural Society has this robust, year-long plan. They have executed a robust calendar of programs that celebrate African American heritage, artistic contributions, and community engagement. These initiatives include music, theater, health and wellness education, historical commemorations, and special exhibitions. The grant will enable AACS to sustain and expand these programs, making them more accessible to diverse audiences, including underserved communities in Flagler County. Their score was 100.3, and their funding request is $9,000. City Lights is to produce City Lights, Inc., Motown, and Mo Show. The show is an onstage reenactment and theatrical performance of music and artists from the Motown era and more. The music and artists of the Motown era is a significant part of art, history, and culture. The cast and crew are a diverse group of people in the community, from teenagers through adults in their late 70s. No other group in Flagler County provides this type of opportunity or entertainment. Their score was 95.5, and their funding request $5,000.
How long have they been around, Ms. Crouch?
City Lights has been around for a few years.
Where do they do most of their performance?
Right here, where, City Lights there? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I didn't catch
Here
that.
in Palm Coast.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm saying where at in the city? They rent facilities?
Yeah,
to do it?
usually,
Okay.
yeah, they move them around, they rent whatever
They used to
facilities are.
rent the community center for their
Right, and then,
practices.
right, exactly.
That's one of the biggest costs, is just being able to get a
Exactly.
facility. Yes, ma'am, go
That's
right
for
ahead.
sure. City Repertory Theater, their grant monies received will be used to underwrite artists' fees for directors and choreographers, as well as provide stipends for actors, musicians, and technicians who work on the productions and to offset the cost of production. Their panel score was 104.3, and their funding request, $7,363. They've been around for many years. Community Chorus of Palm Coast, I know you're here. The concerts feature audience participation to join the chorus and sing familiar songs on an even larger choir. This is a beautiful organization. It's a rare opportunity to sing in a group of between 300 and 400 singers, and most audience participations really appreciate and enjoy it. They usually perform at the Trinity, is that right? Presbyterian
Yes,
Church?
ma'am.
Right. So anyway, their concerts are amazing. I hope you all have an opportunity to attend. Their average panel score is 95.8, and the funding request is $6,293.
They're super, well, I've been to quite a few of their shows.
It's beautiful,
Christmas and 4th of July for sure.
right?
Make sure you invite me.
Yeah. Yeah, what's the date? April, okay, there you go.
There you go.
The Flagler Auditorium Governing Board, Amy's here, and she got the best score out of everyone. I have to-
Way to go, where's she at? There, you know how to do it, don't you?
She's a little well-versed
We
on
need a
grant
grant
writing.
writer, you need to come work for us in the city.
They're seeking funds and assistance with the shows for April, May, and June at the Fitzgerald Auditorium. We've all been there. We all see what is done there, performed there. I don't think there's any question that these funds will really help their assistance with artists and performances fees for Uptown Motown, the Dallas String Quartet, and the Olivia Show.
So is the parking lot squared away now? It's straight, they finished everything out there? I can't
Yeah.
remember the last
It
show.
kind of makes sense now.
It's wonderful. And we're making more improvements as we go.
Yes, ma'am.
The Flagler County Education Foundation, the Josh Cruz Writing Project is a really interesting and fun project. It involves so many students across the county. writing clubs, fostering creativity, literacy, and self-expression. Students in grades 4 through 12 develop writing skills on these weekly club meetings, and they're and dedicated educators that are there to help them, and the club sponsors. Each year, top student submissions are published in an annual anthology celebrated at 2 major events. What I'm excited about is their book launch. Their book launch in April. All these writings from these 4th graders to 12th graders, all these really beautiful stories that they write about will be in a book, and they get to write their own book. So a student book signing for family, friends, and the community. I think it's a wonderful project to participate in, and their average score was 95, and the funding request is $15,000.
So just to jump in here for Josh Cruz, I knew Josh Cruz personally, and this is a great cause. The Ed Foundation does a great job with this. There's multiple events to raise money, but obviously the programs that they put forward for students is very important. My daughter participates in a writing club after school that's funded by the Ed Foundation for Josh Cruz writing project as well. So they're out there in the community every day advocating for reading and writing with our students. So just wanted to get that plug in there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Flagler Performing Arts Academy, a 3-week summer intensive musical theater experience led by professional performers and teachers designed for students ages 8 through 18. Guides participants through an entire production process from auditions to performances covering acting, singing, dancing, theater, etiquette, and more. They provide a safe environment for young performers to help develop their talents, build confidence, and bring fantastic productions to a live stage. I don't know if you've ever actually gone to one of their performances at the end of the summer once they work so hard on. And it's really mind-boggling to see these young kids. And they learn everything along the way. So it's really a great exercise in theater experience. Their score was 94.5, and the funding request is $4,000. The Garden Club of Palm Coast has been around for 12 years. Well, the 12th Annual Spring Festival and Plant Sale, a vibrant celebration of gardening, nature, and community, is going on right around the corner in April at the high school. Their creativity, in addition to the plant sale, they have local crafts, live music, delicious food trucks, making this a perfect springtime outing for all ages. Whether you're a seasoned gardener or just starting out, this event is the perfect opportunity to find inspiration and bring home something special for your landscape. If you've ever gone to one of those festivals, you see I've never seen gardening be so amazing creative. So, and it's really a wonderful thing for the community. Their score was 89.3, and their funding request is just $2,635 to help offset some of those expenses. The Hispanic American Cultural Society was really a great, also really a great application as well. I believe they're here as well. They wanted to put on a big Hispanic festival with vendors in different Hispanic countries and arts and craft vendors while a DJ and some local bands play. It's going to be a big festival over in St. John's Plaza, I believe he said. He's here, yeah, St. John's Plaza. So they're going to promote Hispanic culture, heritage, and language, and seek out necessities by acting and engaging in sectors of the Hispanic community. And so they need the resources in which to help pull off this major festival for them. Their panel score was 97.5, and the funding request is $4,803. Kids Rock the Nation.
Ma'am, just
Yes.
real quick.
Yes.
When is the festival planned for? I think it's end of May timeframe?
It is May.
Right? May 31st. Okay, thank you.
May 31st. Kids Rock the Nation is celebrating their 10th anniversary this year. I don't know if you know Anthony or not, but he does amazing jobs in the community by finding funds and providing free instruments to children pursuing musical careers, or not necessarily a career, but just wanting to learn a musical instrument. This year, they're organizing the 10th anniversary event in August, featuring local musicians and professional bands playing between the kids' performances. The dates chosen are significant since these were the dates of the first Woodstock. Like Woodstock, most of the performers will be unknown, who may rise to stardom. 32 acts performed at Woodstock, and we hope to have the same number. However, these will be students we have served. This event will be done in partnership with the Kiwanis Club. So that's going to be a fun event. The average score is 89.8, and their funding request is $5,000. And then we have the Palm Coast Music Festival. Now entering its 7th year, they provide a unique musical event with incredibly talented songwriters and performers who also educate the attendees on the art of songwriting for our local citizens and to make Palm Coast and the Flagler Beaches a destination for years to come for visitors across the United States and multiple cities. Planning to have over 45 hit songwriters with over 175 #1 songs to their credit, along with hundreds more charted hits. These shows will include a kickoff show April 30th to celebrate the recent renovations to the Daytona State College Palm Coast Amphitheater. And a portion of the ticket proceeds for that evening will go to the Flagler County Education Foundation to support scholarships to Daytona State College. I know Gary's here, and I, for one, can say I've gone to this every year also, and it grows and grows and grows. It's really almost outgrowing, it seems. They've got so many more people coming now. I think the first year they might have had a dozen songwriters coming. Now they've got 45. You know, everybody wants to come to Palm Coast now for the Songwriters Festival. He also had a very, very high score, 102.3, and their funding request is $15,000.
And can you break down kind of what does that $15,000 go towards?
Musicians, transportation.
Oh, paying their lodging.
Lodging.
And, getting them here.
Right,
to
there's
perform.
45 musicians they're bringing here.
Okay.
You know, it's not, you know, an inexpensive event to pull
Yeah,
off.
I get it.
You know. And then we spoke about the Yes, You're Invited, which, you know, sadly, they didn't reach the 880 minimum score. But again, are encouraged to come back next year, broadening their scope for the arts and culture. And then the Flagler County Historical Society application with Dawn. So having said all that.
And you're gonna, what is it, another additional $11,000?
Just shy of $11,000, I think.
And are you working with?
Now, if you would like, we can reopen the grant for that $10,000+ and give out some small mini grants.
Are you working with the Palm Coast Historic Society to try to help them out?
We can if they ask us for it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So is it open or not? Is it still open, or can you reopen it?
Well, we could reopen it. It's closed right now, but we can reopen it if you give us the permission to move forward and pull out these little smaller grants of $2,500 each, or.
Okay, because I didn't see Palm Coast Historic Society was not on that list, and I'd like to help them out if we can in some way. So if you could work.
So if you would like us to reopen the grant to fill in that gap of $10,000, whatever dollars it is, we'd be happy to do that.
All these have to be tied to an event though, right?
Or a program,
Or
a program.
And
Yeah.
it is a reimbursement grant. So
It is,
the
yeah.
organizations have to spend the money and then show us the receipts and include the city and FC3 on all of their marketing materials as well.
Okay, thank you. Is that it?
I think so.
Ms. Crouch, thank you.
Do you have any other
Any
questions?
questions from the dais?
I just have a few questions. I know there was discussion on opening this up to our neighboring municipalities, so Bunnell, Flagler Beach, unincorporated county, and I don't have an issue with that. I think that, you know, since this money does come from the city of Palm Coast right now, the events remaining in Palm Coast or having to be in Palm Coast is appropriate, but have we spoken to the neighboring municipalities to see, you know, if they're willing to contribute a little bit in order to allow some funding to possibly go to these neighboring municipalities? Because particularly Bunnell, we have quite a few events that
Right, and we
occur in
understand our
Bunnell.
residents go to those
Right.
communities too. I agree. I mean, that's part of our conversation at the board level.
Okay.
We continue talking about that, and I would like to expand it, but I agree with you that they need to have a little buy-in into the grant program, just like the city does, so.
Yeah, so if you can just, and I know I'm on the board, so I'll obviously stay in the loop on that, but I think you know, I don't think there'd be any pushback from this board, hopefully, knowing that a lot of our residents don't see the municipal lines, right? If they
That's-
want to
yeah,
take their
right,
kids to an
right.
arts event in Bunnell,
Right.
or the beach, you know, they're going to want to do that. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that we should preclude those events. But, you know, additionally, I think they need to have some skin in the game. So hopefully we
I
can
agree. I
support
think
that.
To
And-
broaden the scope, I think would be a wonderful accomplishment.
Yeah, so if you can just keep us updated
Of
too on
course.
your efforts. Thank you.
To include county. County gets a lot of money from us. They should contribute too. Yes, Councilman.
Remember,
Mr.
this
Mayor-
is for the residents too, though, you know, so.
Mr. Mayor, I support, you know, passing this resolution and open the application process back up for the Palm Coast Historical Society or others that would like to apply as well.
There's not much money left out there, but, you know, if we can get it out, the intent was to help the arts. So,
Right.
Any more questions from the dais?
I don't think so, except for to just support everything that was said already. I agree that, you know, any of the programming should be a benefit to residents of Palm Coast, but also if we can reach out and grow that a little bit, that would be great as well. And then the same thing about Palm Coast Historical Society. I know they struggle with funding and getting stuff done. That's important, so.
It is important, I agree.
So I agree as well with, you know, extending or reopening that application process for them.
Okay, so we're in consensus to reopen, try to get somebody that lasts a little bit of money.
Sure.
I'm going to say,
Mr. Mayor, would you like me to make a motion?
no, it's not that. I was going to ask her another
Okay.
question, and I can't remember what it was. Councilman Miller threw me off. It'll come back to me. Yes, if we can get a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, so I move that we approve this resolution with the list of applicants on that submitted, and also open it back up for other applicants with the remaining funds that we have.
Thank you. Got a second? Okay, any further discussion from the dais? No? We'll open this up to public comment. Ms. Crouch, you can have a seat. Stay close in case somebody has a question for you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am?
Yes. Chantal Praniger, I love arts, but we just had that discussion earlier about the water that we can't finance. And so my understanding is that grant, the city is giving that money for the arts, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Which includes the children going to see turtles and, I mean, come on. If the people who were talking earlier heard that, they would be shocked.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further comments from the public? Yes, Mr. Johnson.
Thanks, Leslie. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm on the board of directors for FC3, and I just wanted to say a few things. First off, thank you to all the applicants for applying. There's some really great organizations that do some really great things. And just to alleviate a little bit of concern from the taxpayer perspective, this $100,000 that's being given out as a grant application is coming back to us in the source of local economic growth, right? There's going to be hotels, there's going to be all these different incentives that are built up. I really think that it's a small investment to make Palm Coast a better place in the future, and I appreciate your guys' support on this. And Nancy and Deborah from the county has been doing great. And just one thing, Teresa, just to clarify, I did get the request, and I completely agree with your sentiment. We should open this up. The TDC through the county is actually pushing $40,000 of this money, as well as some of the money that we had spent for the submittal process. So we need to be looking at Bunnell, at other places to come in, and I believe you made some sort of mention of it at the meeting, but even if it's a smaller buy-in, if we can get buy-in from the other communities, rising tide lifts all ships. So thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Denise Calder.
How are you doing, Miss Denise?
I'm good. I haven't been here in a long time.
I
and
know,
people-
not since
I
I've been
guess
on
they
the
think
city
I don't
council.
live here, but I've been a hurricane victim for 3 years, and, you know, obviously Rebuild Florida and Reclaim Florida and all that has issues, and so I have issues. I have plenty of issues with the city of Palm Coast. But anyway, that's for another discussion. Arts is a great thing in Flagler County, and if it wasn't for the steadfast school system as well as Daytona State College, we wouldn't have half the stuff that we have here. The pile of bricks that I'm so fond of saying in Town Center, you know, is a project that I wrote with in collaboration. I helped Yeah, okay. Nancy's finally acknowledging that, okay, and with the city and having this frustration associated with it. And yes, Mayor, you do need a grant writer, but you also need people who understand grant administration and grant management and grant considerations. And Julia Trulia, who was the coordinator, I guess the volunteer coordinator for this program, did an outstanding job, and she worked tremendously with me to assist Kids Rock the Nation, okay? I am a professional grant writer. I teach grant writing, and I only got a score of 88. So when you see Yes You Can, which is the program that was denied the score that they have, that was an organization that funds, I guess, autistic children, and they have birthday parties, but these birthday parties are not what people think that they are, and whether or not that organization, she was a volunteer, just like everybody else who wrote that and could not get a score. It was very frustrating to listen to the conversation and be there, and the woman who spoke and who wrote the grant took the time within that 2-week time frame to submit the grant. Didn't even get a passing score, and you have leftover money. Now, I don't know what happened with the Palm Coast Historical Society, where they didn't apply. I mean, granted, I applied for Kids Rock the Nation in 2 hours, okay, before the grant deadline, and I could not find the application. So, I mean, I have all that documented. I, went through the whole process. I'm not complaining about it because it's a work in progress, and I think things need to, work things out, the kinks, okay? But I, for one, have personally offered to assist Yes You Can. They are going to be included in our event that's going to be organized at the Pile of Bricks, okay? And I say that tongue-in-cheek, okay, because I don't know what the future is with the city. I can't gather any information about it. The fact that the city made a good decision to give FC3 the money to oversee it, it's been more professional in the last 2 years, okay, or the last 5 years. And I'm looking at you, Lauren, as far as the discussions we had versus administrative versus programmatic. And I guess, Mr. Miller, your observation or point about the different activities and the funding agencies like the Songwriters Festival, when you compare $1 million programs to $5,000 mom and pop stuff, there's a big difference in applications and quality. But I've offered to help. They're going to be inclusive. If I'm successful in fundraising, which I hate doing fundraising, I do grant writing because of accountability, and that's a big deal. But their people will be included.
Thank you, ma'am.
Gary Levi, citizen of Palm Coast for almost 18 years now. And I just want to say thank you to the city council and the mayor and the staff for working with FC3. I can tell you, going through the grant process, I'm not necessarily the most IT savvy at all times, as I would like to be, although I could figure it out. I want to commend the FC3 council, their board, for the process that they put us through, and the depth of their investment of time into this on a volunteer basis. And I also want to say thank you for the support that hopefully will be approved here today and going forward, really for the arts, because as I see it, being involved in business, I'm a retired banker, 48 years, and very involved here in the community over the last 18 on the economic development side of it. I applaud what all of you are trying to do, and that is diversify our tax base, and one of the key components to that oftentimes can be the arts options and cultural options that we provide. When recruiters are coming in here, companies that are looking to relocate, things of that nature, that could be a very critical point, and it's part of their checklist oftentimes when you look at search companies. So thank you for your time and appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comments? Yes, ma'am.
I can't go away without saying a few words. I'm Amelia Fulmer. I'm with the Fitzgerald Performing Arts Center, the Flagler Auditorium, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. This process was so much better under FC3's leadership just because they've got some skin in the game for the arts. Last year, this county, there was $126,000 lost in the cultural governor's veto of the arts and culture. So in just this county, it was $126,000 lost. So this money goes a long way in helping us with this fiscal year. Many of us are up for state grants for next year, and we hope we get them. But thank you so much for being your part in helping us believe in creative communities and building creative communities. All of these people in these organizations are volunteers, so I know your money is going to go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing no one come forward, we'll bring it back to the dais. Ms. Cook, could you call the vote, please?
Vice Mayor Pontieri,
Yes.
Councilmember Gambaro,
Yes.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Mayor Norris.
Yes, ma'am.
The motion passes unanimously.
Really quickly, just say something. Ms. Crouch, I did want to thank you for your efforts, and please thank your board. I know you all put a lot of time into this, so we do greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. We're going to move along. We're going to pause for a second. Wait for the room to clear.
There's good vibes happening, so.
Okay. You're next.
Was it two-way?
We got you next.
Don't forget.
Well,
Almost
you know
done.
what?
6 slides, so it'll be quick.
You know, we could also just.
Okay, we're going to move along to H6. City Attorney, could you read the resolution, please?
Yes, sir. So we have a 2025 resolution approving renaming the show tennis court at the Southern Recreation Center to the Friends of Tennis Court.
Mayor, City Council, Director of Parks and Recreation, Mr. James Hurst is here to present the application for renaming our new show court as the Friends of Tennis Court. If you recall, City Council has an adopted policy that was adopted back in September of 2021 that gave us the procedures on how to name public facilities, what facilities are eligible, and then the application process that it has to go through. And James will talk through that with you. Go ahead, James.
Thank you, Mrs. Johnston. So as the city manager spoke, the policy was created in 2021. So how the process and procedures go for that policy is that the city of Palm Coast, specifically mainly Parks and Recreation, receive a nomination form from a resident. Then once we receive that form, we take that nomination request to the BEAC, or the Beautification Environmental Advisory Committee, for their review. Once we present the application to them, they make a recommendation to take this in front of City Council, this specific topic and facility. And then from City Council's review, it is then approval to rename that specific facility. So for the show court at the Southern Recreation Center, we received a nomination form from a community organization to rename the show court to the Friends of Tennis Court. So again, as part of the naming process, it was submitted to the BEAC for review, and then on January 23rd, they approved the request 3-0. So quickly, the outside organization that did the nomination form was Friends of Tennis. Friends of Tennis was founded in 2005. They have been advocating for public tennis facilities and have played a key role in the creation and expansion of the Palm Coast Tennis Center, or now the Southern Recreation Center. They have helped promote welcome the community. They've supported players of all skill levels and have encouraged new members to join our facility. They continue to support youth tennis through donations of equipment, after-school programs, and organizing fundraiser events for the scholarship round robin for graduating high school seniors. And they also advocated for the continued growth of tennis at the Southern Recreation Center and the surrounding communities, and continue to be a key contributor to major tennis events like the Palm Coast Open. They help us volunteer for event operations. So every time the players come off the court, Friends of Tennis volunteers go out and they brush the court for us. So it helps alleviate some staffing there. And they also help support our local tournaments as well in their endeavors. So then just quickly about the show court. It is the new one. It is an open-air tennis court with 140 seat for spectators. And we mainly use it for obviously open play as well, but tournaments and special events. It was unveiled in January 13th of 2025 as part of the Phase 2 enhancements, which was through the growth grant of $700,000 from the USTA. It is equipped with new LED lighting, so making nighttime matches possible, and we were actually allowed to kind of use those for the tournament, which was awesome. First time ever being able to have night play for our Palm Coast Open. And then it also just serves as the centerpiece of the Southern Recreation Center and the tennis facility, making it a prime destination for the area. And then just quickly, the recommended action would be to approve the BEAC's recommendation to rename the Southern Recreation Center's show court to the Friends of Tennis Court to honor a remarkable community partner. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, James. Any comments from the dais?
Just really quickly, I just want to recognize Nikki and Agnes. I know you guys do a lot for our tennis community. Thank you so much. And not just that, I mean, you're just very good stewards of our community in general, not just in the tennis kind of Palm Coast world. So thank you for being here. Thank you for what you do. And, you know, I look forward to seeing the tennis community continue to grow and bring in tourism dollars too, by the way, for our community, both in passive and active economic dollars. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anything else from the dais? Could I get a motion, please?
A motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Public comment? Anyone have any public comment about renaming the tennis courts? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I'm Agnes Lightfoot, a resident here of Palm Coast, and also the president of Friends of Tennis. And I've been with the tennis center since it opened years ago. It has been an absolute joy for us as tennis players. And we are extremely excited now that we have the new facility and this center court. When you travel around the United States and around the world and you go to a tennis facility, they always have a center court, and they have a name for it. We would like ours to be called Friends. I know the original paperwork said Friends of Tennis, but we would like the banner to just say Friends.
You're going to have to resubmit that paperwork.
We cannot abbreviate it? Okay, we'll have the whole thing. Okay, we don't mind, we can say it. Okay, thank you. The Friends of Tennis has played a vital role in the development and ongoing success of the tennis center and within the addition of the new facility. Over the last 18 years, we have seen it grow, and we've been here, as they say, through thick and thin. We've been instrumental in establishing the tennis center as a premier facility, even before the new construction. This involvement includes hosting and supporting major events like the men's tournament we just had in January, and the women's tournament, which was the first time. It was fantastic. And it attracted top-ranked players, including Riley Opeka, whose family lives here, and Tommy Paul, you may have heard of these players, Francis Tiafoe, Jack Sock, and many, many more. The club has actively supported both high school tennis teams. We provided the tennis teams of the high schools with equipment, instruction, and skill levels that they may not have been able to reach without us being around. And also scholarships. This is going to be our 36th year of doing scholarships because we did it at the original place, the Players Club, and of course now that we're over at the new tennis center. We also provide competitive play in the greater Volusia, so that means we expand more than just Flagler County. I'm looking forward to us being named the Friends of Tennis, and we'll abbreviate it when we talk, but thank you so much for doing this opportunity, giving us this opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing no one come forward, we'll bring it back to the dais. Ms. Cook, please call the vote.
Vice Mayor Pontieri?
Yes.
Councilmember Gambaro?
Yes.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Norris? The motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. We'll move on. We'll move on to item 7. City Attorney, please read it, please.
Yeah, we have a 2025 resolution approving the renaming the community wing located in City Hall to the John Netz Community Wing.
Okay,
go
good
right ahead.
afternoon, Mayor and City Council. James Hurst, Director of Parks and Recreation. This is our second presentation for renaming. This one is to rename the Palm Coast Community Wing, the room that we're kind of sitting in now, or the wing, to the John Netz Community Wing. Just quickly, again, just the renaming process, how it goes to the BEAC after we get a nomination form, and then it comes to City Council for final approval. So we were submitted a nomination form from a citizen of Palm Coast, and it was actually Mr. McDonald. He submitted a form to the City and Parks and Recreation to rename this community wing to the John Netz Community Wing. And then we submitted it to the BEAC for review. As I went to the BEAC committee on January 23rd, it was approved at 3-0 again, and the nomination request was passed to and as a recommendation to the City Council for review and consideration. So Mr. Netz. Mr. Netz served as mayor for 9 years at the City of Palm Coast. He was a City Council member for 6 years during the city's first 20 years of establishment. He was the city's second mayor. He served as an interim City Council member in 2021, and he was an advocate for the approval and construction of City Hall. Kind of those things he did outside of the city, he was the chair of the Flagler County Advisory Committee on School Impact Fees. He was appointed by Governor Jeb Bush to the Northeast Florida Regional Council, and he was also appointed by Governor Charlie Crist to the Board of Florida Navigation District. He was also appointed to the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission statewide Boating Advisory Committee, and was recognized as Citizen of the Year by the Palm Coast Elk Lodge number 2709, and he got that award twice.
Twice, wow.
So just really quick about the community wing. It was opened in 2015 as part of the new Palm Coast City Hall design as a hub of civic engagement. It currently serves as the City Council chambers and venue for public meetings and workshops. When you go out into the hallway, you will see the hallway lined with photos from community events, as well as important milestones in Palm Coast history, but that was put together in collaboration with the Palm Coast Historical Society. Recommended action is to approve the renaming request to rename the community wing located within Palm Coast City Hall to the John Netz Community Wing to honor a remarkable member of our community. And that concludes the presentation.
All right, thank you, James. Comment from the dais? Anyone have anything?
I don't have anything specifically, Mr. Mayor. To me, I don't think I know enough to comment one way or another, so I would rely on others to kind of inform my decision about this.
I had a question. What will be the cost associated with all of the rebranding or renaming?
So for the Friends, we probably look about $295 for the sign, and we're just looking for one sign. If we were to have something here, I was thinking some sort of plaque like we do at Holland Park, which would run us $1,700 just for a plaque. I think about probably this big or so, yeah.
And so would we have, on the front of the building, that picture that you just showed, would it not say John Netz Community Wing?
I believe it would say Community Wing, and then we would have a plaque either inside in the hallway or outside facing the pathway, or as you enter into the building.
I see, so we're not having to change anything on the fascia?
Not change it, it's just kind of more of a plaque. It's kind of our other parks, like Holland Park has,
Okay.
there's a plaque there on a coquina rock.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Gambaro?
I remember John Netz fondly, especially when I was on the school board, when I was a 20-0 school board member here in Flagler County, and really helped me a lot. And I also worked with him when I was on the soil and water board when we were talking about potentially bringing a desalinization plant here. You know, they were talking about that as an option for future water issues. But that's it. I support this.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I never met Mayor Netz. His wife, Mr. McDonald, is his wife fully behind this?
I think Mrs. Netz is in the audience.
Mrs. Netz, is she here? Oh, how you doing, Mrs. Netz? You're perfectly fine with your husband, this wing being named after your husband? Yes, ma'am. Or you wouldn't be here, I'm assuming. Thank you for your support. Any other comments? Could I get a motion, please?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of this resolution.
Thank you, sir. Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any more comments from the dais? We'll put it out to public comment. Mrs. Nets, would you like to make a comment? You don't have to.
I'll make it from here. I just want to say thank you. I think it's a long time coming.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Okay, Mr. McDonald, come right up, sir.
I knew if I sat here long enough, I'd be the last one standing. Robert McDonald, Palm Coast. This was long overdue. I got to support somebody who came from New Jersey. You hear that, John? Okay. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. And I don't know if this is going to fly, but I'm going to do it anyway. We got the cost of the sign. I have a personal friend of mine that's a professional sign maker up in St. Johns County. If the city is willing to pay half the bill for the sign, I'll personally pay for the other half. Because that's the way we're supposed to do it. So, like I always say, the ball's in your court. I'm willing to pay half the cost of the sign, and I've already talked to my friend, the sign maker, up in St. Johns County, and you tell me what you want, or how the sign is to be made, and we've got the price. I'm willing right now, publicly, I'll pay for half.
All right, thank you, Mr. McDonald. We can't make deals like that with citizens, but thank you for the sentiment. Mrs. Nets, I think I ran into your husband one time. I was going to, I think, a T-ball game or something, and I guess they had thrown out the first pitch, and he was walking by. I remember seeing him, but, you know, this is the way there's only been 5 of us. I'm the 5th of 5. He was the 2nd. And you know, some people stood up before and made complaints and stuff, and we've talked about this before. We talked about grace. You got to have grace, and you got to show grace. And I feel that there's nothing at all with naming buildings after people that have been historical figures in our city. So thank you for your support of him during his tenure, his 9-year tenure. I really appreciate it. And I haven't met you personally, but someone told me that you supported me during my campaign, and I really appreciate it. Okay? We'll bring it back to the dais. Any more comments?
Yeah, I think that was a good point, Mr. Mayor, is that, you know, Mrs. Nets, not only did he serve, but you served as well. You know, we go through this kind of as a family in terms of public office and, you know, city staff and things like that. So I think that's a great point to make, is that it's not just him, it was you.
Thank you. Good comment. Okay, so with that being said, Ms. Cook, please call the vote.
Vice Mayor Pontieri?
Yes.
Councilmember Gambaro?
Yes.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Norris?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Yes. Okay, we are going to move along to the consent items. Anyone have any comments for consent? Ms. Vice Mayor, you're scrolling through. What you got?
Yeah, I just have a few questions and clarification. So on number 9, the contract, the master agreement with multiple vendors for citywide debris disposal. Does this contract also apply for emergency situations?
No, this is not your disaster debris contract. This is when stormwater is out cleaning canals or ditches and they run into any type of various vegetative debris or any debris, then this is the ability to use this contract for those services.
Okay, thank you for that. For number 10, which is the resolution approving work order and expenses related to the Indian Trail Sports Complex. It looks like it's from the Capital Projects Fund versus Parks and Rec. Is there a reason for that?
It's using park impact fees out of your capital projects fund.
Got it. Thank you for that. And then are we?
Nope.
No? Oh, okay.
It's out of the capital projects fund.
Uh-oh.
Sales tax.
This is out of the capital projects fund. Those fields were previously lit as multi-use fields, so
we weren't able to reuse those lights that were on the field because it was a different field use for lighting levels, and they didn't meet the current code requirements. So we're replacing the lights, and they'll be specific for baseball. So we couldn't use capacity dollars.
Okay, so that was my next question, was what are we replacing them with? Because I know we've had some issues previously with the type of light, whether they're directional, all those things.
They're specific LED, and these are far away from anybody.
Well, no, I understand that, but just to make sure if we're going to replace them and spend that kind of money, we're doing what should be done.
It's with the newer technology than what's
Perfect.
out at Ralph Carter Park.
Good, okay, thank you, I appreciate that. So this is from capital projects, and this was already budgeted?
Yes.
Okay, and then, thank you. The last question was on 11. For these specific areas, why were these segments chosen as a part of the streetlight project at this time?
This is Carl again. So the city has an adopted streetlight master plan. It was previous to city council's council priorities. We're in the final implementation phase, right, Carl?
Correct. These are all part of streets that were identified as part of the approved streetlight master program. This one here has a little bit more dollars tied to it because we have the tree canopy, and we're going to be using probably lower lights because of the tree canopy and not impacting the oak trees. But these were all part of that streetlight master plan that's been in the works, and we are nearing the end of it.
What was the last part?
We are nearing the end of it. I think we have another couple of years, and
Till 27, I believe.
yeah.
And the funding for paying the electric for all of the streetlight master plans comes out of the public works budget. So you've seen, Ms. Pontier, you may have seen that increase over the last couple of years as more of these come online.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. I have nothing further.
Thank you. Anyone else for comment on the consent?
Just in terms of the Indian Trail Sports Complex, this is improving the existing lights or adding lights to the second 4 fields?
Yes, it's adding lights to the second 4 fields, the new baseball, softball that was put in a couple years ago.
Yeah, and then so to that point, we see that field usage is very highly tied to lighting.
Yes,
right?
and this is just part of a, phased approach over there about making improvements. There will be future agenda items on making parking improvements, and then also replacing some field conditions out there as well. So this is just one step.
Thank you.
Councilman Gambaro, you had something?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Got a second? Anything else from the dais? Public comment on any of the consent items? Seeing no one come forward, we'll bring it back to the dais. Any more comments? Ms. Cook? Vote.
Vice Mayor Pontieri?
Yes.
Councilmember Gambaro?
Yes.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Norris?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll move on to item J, our final public participation. Anyone have any final public participation? Yes, Ms. Johnson.
Hello. I'm fixing to talk fast. I'm going to pretend I'm from the north, okay? All right, it's like this. Okay, there is another statute that I want you to be aware of. This is Florida statute, Florida state law statute, such as section 166.241. It influences municipalities and local ordinances to adopt budgets for enterprise funds with clear revenue and expenditure delineations. I'm not sure if that's been done here to keep the water utility funds within the water utility and not be sent over to other areas such as the general fund, This statute supports something that's, that utility funds are ring-fenced. I had to look that word up because I'm medical. I don't do law except to argue. And this state supports that the utility funds are ring-fenced and are not freely transferable to other municipal functions unless explicitly authorized. And so rather than allowing the staff to decide we can just transfer the funds, we need to have it a little bit more tight, I think. That should be a recommendation that I'm going to make for y'all. Another thing that I want you to understand also, Mr. Gambaro, I'm quite angry with you. I've spent a whole week in anger, and I pray that God take that anger out of my heart. What you did last week subsequently drove a knife through this town. Do you remember the last few meetings when you came in here giggling? You were happy to work together. You were on target. You laughed. You looked at each other. You smiled. And now you've not only divided the entire council, Mr. Gambaro, but you divided a town. You split us up just when we were getting back together. And I have spent so much time watching y'all and felt, gee, I don't have to come here and babysit anymore. Well, guess what? I'm coming back, okay? And I'm really upset with that. Do you remember such days as this? Let's see, I gotta figure out where I put it. I'm trying to go fast so that I can get this done. This is from the Ed and Eddie show. Do you remember the Ed and Eddie show? Come on.
Out of time.
I hope it plays. I was not gonna play. The other thing is that was Eddie Branchino on the first day of Ed Danko's thing here. The other thing that I really want to play real quick.
Your time's expired.
If I have a minute, can I have one more minute?
1 minute.
This won't stop. That was Eddie Branchino. He was hollering. All right, so that one shuts that one up. Okay, the last one, I'll be real quick, I promise. Okay, audio files, my granddaughter had to teach me this, okay? And this is an accusation, is nothing else more but an accusation, okay? And we want to talk about accusations and what happens behind closed doors. Recommend you change your cell phone from Dave to Mayor.
Hey, Dave. Good afternoon. Charlie Gambaro here, just calling to touch base. Look forward to catching up.
Now, that was 2:28? At 2:28 p.m.
Good afternoon. Charlie Gambaro here, just calling to
I don't do cell phones, I do computers. Anyhow, so what you did, I don't know what you did, don't care what you did, but that leaves your door open to accusations, just like what you did left the door open for accusations for our mayor. Now, I recommend that you all get your acts together and quit bickering and work for our city. We count on you. We like this man. We like the direction. We like his leading. We like his leadership. Quit
All right,
with
Leslie,
the accusations.
your time has
Thank
expired.
You.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry?
I said your time's expired. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir, I understand and I'm done. Thank you very much.
Yes, anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Denise Calderwood, and I have to tell you, I'm first-generation Palm Coaster. My family moved here in 1974. So all these people, everybody that spoke to, the whole history of Palm Coast, I mean, I know it. I'm a walking, living testimony, like along with Mike Sciamento. But I want to say, and the Gazzolis, and all of the kids who were the first generation that were here, we can tell you how great Palm Coast was a place to grow up, and we had so much fun. And that's why I want to go back to the Woodstock idea, because I think all of us need to have a big party and come together and say, hey, we're residents of Palm Coast. And I got you all to smile. Come on, think about it, the free living spirit, and let it go, okay? Because politics is over, and I'm a political gadfly, according to Flagler Live. And Brian McMillan's called me a few things in the past, but at least he still respects me, okay? I think he does anyway. Maybe his wife does. But anyway, I've watched his family grow up, and they're epitome of a beautiful family that can come out of Palm Coast as a product. So now Palm Coast is a leader. You have a new leadership, and let it be a new day and a new time. However, at the same time, I need you all to consider this. 66% of Flagler County, i.e. probably 50% of that, and I don't have the numbers, in Palm Coast cannot afford to live here anymore, okay? So the fact that you're doing all the development, we have no affordable housing, we have big issues, and when you bring down to the utility department and all that stuff that you just had a 2-hour conversation about, It all goes back to accountability, basic stuff, treating people with dignity and human respect, okay? And understanding where the people are coming from, because it is our community, we are the people, okay? When you look at your utility bill and you go and ask for help because you can't pay for it, I got a $600 utility bill, and I'm not even in Palm Coast, okay? Right? I turned the water on. There was no leak. I called the companies. Rose is my neighbor. She had the same issue on our street. Turned out to be stormwater issue. Turned out to be water, wastewater, you know, whatever one I was told about, okay? But it cost me $600, okay? One person going in there sometimes to wash my hands when I was cleaning up the house. There's a problem with that. When I called the city, they said, oh, well, it's not that. It was the stormwater share. It's the fee, utility fee. You all know it better than I do. I haven't looked. But that's ridiculous. That affects the bottom line, okay? When eggs are $8 a dozen now, and then you have your stormwater issue, you have to break that down, make it common sense, so when somebody does say that maybe the bills should be split, they should be, because you can't get help for your water bill if you go to ask all the different agencies, because of the way it's written. That does not help the person who is in need, and you have 67% of those in Flagler County. So keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, Ms. Paulette. How's your new job going? Have you had a meeting yet?
I'm sorry?
Have you had a meeting yet of the code board?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm Paulette Hatfield in the F section, and I've been here since 1992, when my father and John Netz both moved here to Palm Coast. I'm not here to complain about my $129 water bill. That is utilities bill, rather, that includes a lot of other things. I'm one person in my home, and I haven't watered my lawn in thousands of years because I have natural native Florida plants, and my St. Augustine grass has learned to grow deeper roots so that it goes to the very high water line that we have here in Florida. I also want to thank most of you for all that you do. I don't think that it's proper to accuse any of you of anything from this particular microphone. I think that we have a method to deal with situations, and I think we need to let those situations happen. But I do want to thank you ever so very much for the traffic calming speed humps on Florida Park Drive, and I hope that they stay there. Thank you again.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing no one come forward, we'll bring it back to the dais. We'll move on to matters of the city council not on the agenda. Anyone have anything to close out the session?
Well, you know, I can't let this meeting end without talking about last Tuesday and how the Florida Gators ended the Florida State Seminoles' undefeated season in baseball with a 7-2 win, as well as an SEC championship over three.
Tracy's sitting right there.
Go Gators.
This is the point. This is the fun of it, right? When you're up, you're happy. When you're down, you're not. But you know that's the point of college sports and sports in general. But also the SEC championship that the Florida Gators just won in basketball. They're number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. So go Gators for that. And then I didn't know if the council wanted to participate maybe in a bracket challenge.
I already picked my bracket buster.
Oh, you have? Well, don't tell anybody yet until we all decide if we want to do this. But, you know, I'd be happy to fill out a bracket and kind of make it public so that everybody can follow along if they care. If not, you know.
I'm in for that. I think that's great, man.
Councilman Gambari?
Yeah. New headline.
You got anything, Councilman Gambari?
I do really quickly, sorry.
I'm with the Councilman Gambari.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, no, I'm good, thank you.
All right. Yes, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So I just wanted to say that I know, obviously, there's some tough topics going on right now in the news and with our community, and you know, I think that at the heart of what is going on is, you know, in my opinion, we're all kind of yearning for transparency and making sure that we're abiding by budgets and rules and all of those things. I hope that whatever is looked into comes up with nothing, to be quite honest. I hope that we can all continue to work together, not only as council members, but also as staff. I think that we have been able to do some great things from this dais over the past several months, and I appreciate all of the work that's been put in despite some of the differences in opinion. So, it has been heavy in here today, and I don't prefer that. I don't. I much prefer the way things were around this time last week. So hopefully, we can continue to trudge forward in a positive way, and I look forward to continuing to work with this group. And fifth, that will be in Mr. Stevens' seat, and still uplifting prayers to him. Also, let's keep all of our public officials in thoughts and prayers. There are some personal things going on with multiple families that represent our community, and I think, we have a tough job as it is, personal things aside. So, let's just keep everybody in positive thoughts and prayers.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Stevens texted me back and said he's up and moving a little bit, doing PT, so he's venturing into the hallways. Well, he ventured into the hallway yesterday. So Mr. Stevens is doing much gooder, I guess you could say. So the only thing I have is I'd like to just see if I can get some acknowledgement from the council that all three of you members have were updated on the situation in the building department as far as stealing time and someone being fired.
I was made aware, this was a while ago, actually, I think maybe a month and a half, I don't remember, but that somebody was, I don't remember the specifics, if it was stealing time or advising.
It doesn't have to be specific. I just want to know that.
Generally speaking, somebody in the building department was let go for something having to do with improper recording of time. I don't know, I don't remember the specifics.
One
Agreed,
person
that's
let
my
go,
understanding, yeah.
And a couple of people were suspended for stealing time.
Again,
You guys know nothing about this?
whether it's stealing time, I don't know, but I was updated by a city manager with regards to disciplinary action taken against members of our building department having to do with misrecordings of time in some way.
Okay, so.
Yeah, my understanding was it was like a comp off or something, or but I can't remember specifics on it.
I just want to make sure everyone's aware of it because, well, I won't get into it. You can figure it out for yourself, but stealing time is a crime as verified by the sheriff. And that's something I don't take lightly, is stealing time. You're paid for an honest day's work. You do an honest day's work. You stay your whole time. So it's not hard to verify those types of things. If you've ever been a timekeeper, you know who's touched that time card the last time and where it was touched and by whom it was touched. And everyone's aware of how employees log out, log in to work here in the city. You guys know how it works?
I don't specifically.
Okay, so either, if I'm correct, city manager, you can log in on your phone, but you have to be in your facility, or you can do it from your laptop, correct?
It varies on department and specifics of each position. We do have time clocks in various facilities as well, so it really depends on the position.
That's something that's a serious matter and everybody should be aware of it. And that's part of the problems. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the Sunshine Law, but when you got 4 individual people, and Ms. Pontieri made reference to this at the last meeting about my vote don't count, they have the 3 votes they need. That's part of the problem with the Sunshine Law, is you working someone in a silo to get what you want. And if you can't understand that, I can't help you. But you have to understand that these members on this council are operating in a vacuum. So that's all I got.
Mayor, I have a question, though. I mean, was that being brought up because you still have a concern that we need to discuss? Because if that needs to be discussed and it has not been resolved, then we need to talk about it.
Well, me personally, I think that stealing time is rampant across the city. I even talked to Ms. Johnston that I wouldn't be surprised if there's somebody, when I first came into this office, I wouldn't be surprised with all the spider webs I've been given by, people that have been dismissed from the city, and different organizations and people. I wouldn't, and I told Ms. Lauren Johnson, I know, that can testify that I told her, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have someone that has a no-show job here in the city. It's quite possible.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I guess my question is, when we say things like spider webs, and I know these things, but what I'm saying is, if there's a problem, let's talk about it publicly and open with facts, kind of saying.
Well, that's what I'm saying. As far as the disposition of that matter, and that employee being terminated, and 2 people being suspended for like 2 or 3 days without pay, that's kind of a big deal. And I had to actually prod to get that disposition. It wasn't like, hey, sir, this is what's going on. This is what happened with it. I had to prod for that disposition. So I wouldn't even have been told if I didn't ask. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. I think if that is going on in other departments, or if it's something that you feel hasn't been completely resolved, then by all means, I think that we should talk about those things. And if there are issues with getting information, then the best place to put that pressure on is right here.
Well, that's why I love us having workshops and having these dialogues, but, things like that's a real issue for me, because our residents pay their taxes, they go to work, they try to take care of their families, and you certainly don't need a government employee slacking off, getting paid for doing nothing, going home 2 o'clock in the afternoon every day, and their supervisor signing them out from their desktop. That is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And
Agreed.
to me, that's an automatic fireable offense. And because, like I said, stealing time is a crime. If you steal 40 hours a year, that's a lot of money. I just want to bring it to your attention.
Well, do we have a suggestion for some action that, I'd be behind?
I think what really needs to happen when everyone's talking about forensic audits, I'd like to see, our timekeeping system audited. If you can see a pattern, which it's not hard to see patterns in timekeeping, if you're a certified timekeeper, if you've certified people's times and, kept people's hours, dealt with comp time, vacation time, and stuff like that, it's easy to go back and audit things like that and find out. And if patterns emerge, patterns emerge. But,
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Maybe we can get consent to explore
The workshop,
something of that.
the workshop.
Yeah, we can put it on the workshop, try to find what alternatives we have for, diving into this a little bit more.
I'm open.
So we have information.
I'm open to that. You have my consent.
Yeah, I don't know what that looks like, but I'm open to talking about the system itself and making sure there's no abuse.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that should be in all of our best interests.
Yeah, same here.
Thank you.
Just clarifying, and maybe Lauren, you might have to speak out, might need a little more direction, what you guys would want for that matter.
We could start out with the human resources manager explaining the time system to us and how it operates and who's responsible for what and when it happens. And show me how you can go in and look and see, because there's a lot of things. I can identify the crime, but a lot of time it's proven conspiracy, which we've had that conversation before, Mr. Duffy. I've identified crimes, but proven conspiracy and how it got to be that way is another thing. Like right now in this city, if I were to be able to subpoena like 10 phones in this city, we would fix a lot of things in this city real quick. If I could subpoena 10 phones, that's just my take. But yes.
Sorry, just want to make sure, so city manager has direction. So it sounds like you guys want maybe to have the HR director to come and give a presentation how the timekeeping is going, and you guys can ask further questions on that. Is that kind of what you're looking at?
I think the system itself, the records that it keeps, and if there is any oversight or any internal controls to you review them, identify any things, any potential issues, cross-reference them to make sure, are we currently overseeing them in any way? So all of that type of information, to just better educate us and maybe point out any shortcomings in that system to the city staff itself as they're going through this process.
Other issues like people working remotely. How many people in the city are working remotely? You know, how often do they work remotely? What is their circumstances of why they're working remotely? You know, everything's getting back to normal because we're post-COVID now, right? So stuff like that, you'd like to know.
So, Mr. Mayor, obviously we kind of define like direction here, but then we're starting, if we're starting to do that, we're starting to get into the realm of directing policy and procedure underneath the city manager.
Well, it's not directing, it's being educated and accountability.
I understand that, and I agree. You know, if I was running an organization, that's how I would do it. What I'm saying is, I don't know if that's within our purview.
That's why we have Mr. Marcus Duffy. He can.
So I think it would be okay if you guys want to know a stat like that. If this direction from this council just wants to have information, that's fine. Now, giving orders and doing that's a different story. But if you just want informational facts, yeah, I don't see any issues with that.
Yeah, it's not hard. If you've ever worked as a timekeeper, especially at the federal level, it's not hard to, you know, pull that data. Okay, anything else?
Sorry, I had one more comment that I forgot to say earlier, but it came to my attention that some members of staff have started receiving some threatening communications. And so I just wanted to publicly say that, you know, everybody has their First Amendment rights, but that doesn't extend to threatening city staff because of frustrations about the way things may go politically or things like that. I would urge everybody to just take a breath.
If it's threats, you need to be reporting at the commander.
Absolutely, and they have been advised that within the city and, you know, things like that. But, you know, just also want to say it publicly. I know sometimes people get worked up about different political decisions and things like that, and, you know, there's a line there where the First Amendment doesn't extend to threatening somebody, and I want to make sure that's clear to everybody out there that may be listening, that, you know, these people live in Palm Coast. They're working for you. They're working for us. And so some of the political stuff that makes these things frustrating kind of bleeds into that, and people want to take out those frustrations, and I get it, but there's a line there. So let's just not cross that line.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Duffy?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So just to update the council from last week, you gave direction based on the alleged allegations for an investigation. My firm is finalizing an agreement with a third-party firm to start that investigation. So we will be finalizing that, and that will happen soon. And as soon as I have an update for this council, I will provide that to you.
Thank you, sir. City manager, last.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and City Council. As part of your packet is the emergency purchases and sole source, if you have any questions on any of those items.
Program yet?
Yeah, there was one that I think you're talking, the storm roof replacement at wastewater treatment plant 1. Is that something that we'll be able to maybe get funds for, or insurance, or
Well, yes, this was due to Hurricane Milton, and the reason why it is so delayed is because we submitted it to our insurance company, and we did receive funding back for our claim. So this is to do the other half that's not supported from insurance.
So this part is not covered by insurance?
Correct.
And I know we submitted some costs to FEMA for
Yes,
damage to facilities.
yes.
So would that cover the other half? Or?
Yes, we still have to, well, it takes FEMA a really long time to give you
Understood.
any money back. So we have to pay for it first, and then, yes, it could be.
Submit for reimbursement?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And we have our meeting on Thursday.
That is correct. We have our executive session on Thursday at 9 o'clock.
100 hours.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
Mayor, if you don't mind, I just had a couple more things.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought
uh,
you were done. I'm
No, that's
sorry.
okay. Just based off your comments at the end, Mayor and City Council, the city does have a fraud, abuse, and waste hotline. That's an independent organization and anonymous that residents can put information in that system, and then it will be looked into. So, Mayor, you did give me that spider web of information in the building department, and we did look into it, and there was remediation with staff. And City Council, I have in my notes that I informed you of that on January the 6th, prior to January 7th's meeting. So, talk to you about that and some stormwater changes, moving people around from stormwater to building, et cetera. Just as a reminder, we've canceled your Tuesday workshop for March 25th because we will be in Tallahassee advocating for the legislative priorities. The Seat 3 final applications are due tomorrow by end of day. And tonight is our first Food Truck Tuesday of the season, and the beneficiary is the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. So really good program and some yummy food trucks. And that completes my comments.
Thank you, ma'am. Any alibis on the council? None? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.